Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show, everyone. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Everyone, how you doing? Welcome back into the Computer America program. We hope that you missed us during our little vacation. We know that we missed you, and everyone, hey, how you doing? So today on the program, we have computer and technology news. We're going to get caught up on some things, but all of the news stories will be new, current, relevant, and yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. So if you're out there listening to us on the podcast, if you're listening to us on IRN, if you're listening to us, with the video, however you choose to consume Computer America, then hey, we thank you for it. ComputerAmerica.com is where you'll find everything, including articles, reviews, show notes, links to social media, podcast directory. We are available wherever podcasts are heard, and of course, so much more. Also, live video portion, twitch.tv/Computer America. Okay, all that being said, welcome into the program, and why don't we just go ahead and get started with computer and technology news brought to you by Computer America. Here we go. Okay, so I think that for our first story, we're going to jump back into it with a bit of good news. And this is something that if you grew up or watched TV in the 90s, you would be very, very familiar with. And let's see, I think I had it here. Let's see. And this is probably going to be covered by multiple outlets, maybe not even tech related, but I did find it, pretty fascinating. That example, obviously, then hello there, autoplay videos, always fun. Okay, so this is coming to us from NBC New York, and obviously a lot of publications are going to pick this up, but yeah, it has to do with the fact that in the tech field, it can be a little difficult for, to find out the best way to get into the sector. Do you do internships with companies? Do you try to get certifications? Do you just pick up a programming language and just, go off to the races? Do you start working on computers? Do you have to do apprenticeships? Do you go to college and get a 4-year degree? What is the best strategy? Well, that's where ITT Tech, kind of came in. And, again, if you were watching TV in the 90s and the early 2000s, you undoubtedly saw them where they were like, oh, you can get a job in any of these fields. We'll set you up with a career to do this, this, and this. And by and large, obviously the chain closed back in 2016, and it was accused of being really just a rather intricate way to dupe people out of their GI bills and also just churn through debt. Let's see, and we're going to mute this again. Hopefully that worked. Yes, it did. Perfect. Oh, autoplay videos, always fun. Okay, so, yeah, they were just trying to churn through GI Bills and get you to sign up for a bunch of debt, and at the end of it all, really just leave you with what is essentially an associate's degree, which, not bashing associate degree by any means, but it does not get you, kind of primed for your field of study. Now, with that being said, today, if you happen to be one of those people that were affected by this, well, 18,000 former ITT tech students will get over $500 million with a B student debt forgiveness, which is great. It's obviously those people who were paying for something that they probably did not get, and they're finally getting it forgiven. They mentioned that the move marks a step forward, obviously, for the current administration to clear a backlog of claims in the Borrower Defense Program, which provides loan forgiveness to students who were defrauded by their colleges. Claims piled up during the previous administration, which stalled the program and only started processing claims after a federal court demanded it. And yeah, so there's still 100,000 claims still to go through, but they got through these and said, yep, this is definitely worth looking into. So they mentioned that, they mentioned some other colleges here. Many of the 18,000 claims from the ITT Tech were approved after the Education Department found that the company lied about graduates' job prospects. The agency said ITT made repeated and significant misrepresentations about its ability to help students get jobs. In reality, many students said it was harder to find employment when they listed ITT on their resumes, the department said. And I had actually heard that as well, that if you listed, and again, this is all, just read on the internet, so take it for what you will, but I had also heard those stories and read those stories that, you list ITT Tech and employers kind of knew that the person who lists that on their resume probably is not suited for the kind of work that they're applying for, or at least, they're not at the same level as someone else who claims to have a similar degree from a different institution. Other claims were approved after the department found that ITT misled students about their ability to transfer course credits to other colleges. Credits were rarely accepted elsewhere, the department said, leaving students with little to no progress in their academic careers. So there you go. Borrowers will be notified about their claim approvals in the coming weeks, the agency said. Obviously, if you attended an ITT institute and you have a lot of student loan and you felt like you were misrepresented and, of course, hoodwinked by this organization, it sounds like it's a good time to file that claim finally and get some of that debt cleared away. But very cool. And again, it was just such a household name for so many years, 15 years, and a way that I think a lot of people saw a very clear-cut way to get into the technology field was to attend a program like this, that would set you up for a better paying job and a great career. It's just unfortunate that the organization seems to, again, just be one of those that saddled people with student loan debt, and now it's finally getting cut through. So yeah, a little bit of good news there for our first story. Our second story of the day, we're going to do something that we thought would be very hard to do, but happened. Great. The second story is something that, well, I don't think it's ever going to actually happen, and it might just mean that Twitter, yes, Twitter, the social media company, might be out of India, or might have to leave India. Twitter may now directly be held responsible for every single tweet in India, and it's one of those things that here in the United States, obviously during the previous presidential election, there were talk of social media and Section 230. There was talk of the role of moderation, censorship. Should social media companies have the right to kick prominent people off of the platform, censor their speech, add to their claims with a little asterisk that said that here's other information that contradicts what is said on social media. What is the role of a social media company? Is it purely intermediary? Is it meant to be kind of moderator and police of what is being said and discussed on their platforms? And there's no really clear rule, and that's what we found over these last couple of years when it comes to social media, is that there's really no clear rule. Section 230 is kind of a best in spirit, this is what was happening, and we're going, as long as everyone tries their best to be good people, then they're going to let social media continue to operate as they were. Now, obviously, that came to a head with the previous administration threatening to do away with 230. I think even the current administration wants to revisit 230 because it's just vague enough to get everyone into trouble. Now, how this relates to India, well, Twitter is set to lose its intermediary platform status in India. And they say that it does not comply with new guidelines and it is the only social media platform among mainstream that has not adhered to new laws. Twitter is one of the more prominent places to find dissent for the Indian government. Yes, more politics in technology, and of course, India and I think it's Modi, that is kind of running the country there, and there's been a lot of criticism about that, about farmers' rights, and so on and so forth. I'm not at all, kind of up to date on it all. I just know that people are broadcasting their dissent on Twitter, and the government tried to clamp down on what they saw were lies on Twitter. And that obviously puts Twitter, once again, just like any other social media company, right in the middle of two opposing ideologies, and it's more like opinions. So now, let's go and talk about this. As an intermediary, Twitter is just the middleman, but if it loses that protection, the platform could directly be responsible for all the posts on its platforms. This means that if tomorrow the government decides that a particular tweet is not compliant with the law of the land, the social media platform will have to explain its role. In addition to the user who posted the tweet, Twitter itself could be liable for the content under the Information Technology Act 2000 and the country's penal laws. Essentially, if I were to go on Twitter and say something completely outlandish, maybe even a lie, maybe something threatening, maybe something terroristic, something that is just really abhorrent, obviously India says that the person who tweeted that would still be in trouble. That's the person who would still get in trouble. But on top of that, Twitter would have to come into the courtroom, or at least obviously a representative of Twitter would have to come into the courtroom and say, why did you allow this to happen? What was your role in this whole thing? And, by how much are you responsible for this message getting out there? And if they are not just the middleman, common carrier, I guess would be the term here in the United States. If they're not just the common carrier, then they would, to some extent, be responsible for what had happened. Now, clearly, Twitter does not want to, and again, like in that example, that's just me. That's just Ben doing that one horrible thing. Now imagine if 10,000 bots all decided to do the exact same thing. Yeah, Twitter would have to show up to 10,000 different court cases if the Indian government was that petty with their, with their judicial system. Obviously not sustainable, and Twitter, I'm sure, is pushing back against this heavily. Now, according to the Internet Freedom Foundation, the IFF, the intermediary status of social media platforms is only a technical qualification. According to Section 79 of the IT Act, Twitter and other intermediaries will still be immune from liability. They comply with the legal takedown request of user posts from courts and public authorities. Moreover, organizations like the Software Freedom Law Center, lots of different organizations weighing in here, and individuals like, they have a musician here, have challenged the new IT rules for being unconstitutional. According to them, the new rules violate the fundamental rights of Indian citizens, like the freedom of speech, freedom to practice any profession, and the right to privacy and others. There you have it. And, obviously here in the United States, we don't have that one, but the freedom to practice any profession, I think that has a lot to do with, again, kind of the breaking of the caste system in India, which is supposedly no longer a thing. So the ability to be like a citizen journalist, and obviously freedom of speech to say whatever you want, without pushback from the government, things like that are all being infringed upon here with Twitter. Now, the underlying assertion is that the new IT rules are not in line with the existing IT Act. They're saying that we're keeping the Ministry of Electronics and IT appraised of progress at every step of the process. An interim chief compliance officer has been retained, and details will be shared with the ministry soon. Blah, blah, blah. So, all that being said, it's very complicated to see if Twitter will just kind of leave the country, if they'll shut down the service within the country, if they will talk more directly with India. Who knows? The Modi administration did not take kindly to the underlying assertion by the Jack Dorsey-owned firm. In a letter to Twitter last month, the government asked the social media platform to stop beating around the bush. While Twitter and other platforms asked for an extension to comply with the new rules, the microblogging site, so Twitter, was the only holdout as of May 26th deadline, came and went. Twitter was also spotted putting out job offers for the positions of nodule office and resident grievance officer online. So I guess, poking a little bit of fun at the Indian government. 1 month later, it looks like Twitter finally has to give in. The company has also been asked to appear in front of a panel on June 18th. It's not easy running one of these huge multinational companies because, you have to answer to a lot of different rules and regulations. It's not just because you're a U.S. company, you have to abide by U.S. rules. You have to get really specific. I mean, there was another story that we weren't going to get into about Apple, and it has to do with Apple taking down content, or at least obscuring content that is like pro-LGBTQ and all that kind of thing in like 150 different countries around the world. Like, they have to censor and tweak and really adjust their business, their underlying technology for every country that they operate in. And I'm not saying that's a good or bad thing. Obviously, these countries are their own countries. They can make their own laws. They can they can govern themselves. It's not up to a tech company to tell them how their country is supposed to run. But obviously, for, one would hope an American tech company would be kind of on the side of American ideals. So it's a very muddy playing field that these companies have to operate in, but at the end of the day, they choose to be there, and they are making a lot of money by being there. So it's hard to work up any kind of frustration for Twitter for being, for situations that pop up like this. And it sounds like they had a couple of weeks at least. It's not a complete blindside. It's just they did not comply as fast as other tech companies did. But to paint Twitter as some kind of martyr that is fighting for everyone's equality and that kind of thing, that's not really Twitter's job. It's not Twitter's job to defend the ideals of America within India. That change needs to come from within India, and that's probably all I have to say on that one. My best guess for that whole debacle there is probably going to be in Twitter either complies within like the next 24, 48 hours, or Twitter shuts down operations in India, which seems very unlikely because I'm sure they have tens or if not hundreds of millions of users within India. So there you go. Okay, that was story number 2. Story number 3. Story number 3, plenty of time left. How about, just real quick, this should be a pretty quick one. This is from CNET, and they did this great in-depth article on GPS, so a technology that has really come into its own over the past 20 or so years, and yeah, looks like we're getting an upgrade. This is, and that's really what I'm going to be trying to focus on here, is that, well, GPS is a technology that we're all very familiar with, but at the same time, it's something that was started like in the 90s. It's not, it was obviously started by the military. The technology has since moved into the consumer space. And a lot of services and systems would not be able to operate without GPS. Obviously, something from the 90s would not be as accurate as something made today when it comes to technology. And that's why we come into this article here and GPS 3, which is the new update that we're going to be talking about. Now, GPS 3 and what it promises, and I'm not going to, kind of bore you with the fact that Space Force is now in charge of the whole global positioning satellite system. I'm not going to bore you with, kind of the history of GPS and how it works and that whole thing. I'm going to list the article in the show notes if you'd like to check that out yourself. But I am interested in the changes to the technology. What's new? So here's what GPS 3 promises, and that's way down here. Here we go. This says that the signal will be up to 3 times stronger, and they'll have up to 8 times the anti-jamming capability. Though you and I probably won't see drastic changes anytime soon, the satellites are projected to have a 15-year lifespan, double that of those of the previous generation, though the older ones have tended to stay in business longer than expected. A modular design means it's easier to make timely changes on the assembly line or to send software uploads to the satellites in orbit. So a much longer lived satellite, even though it says 15 years, things in space, you tend to use them for as long as you possibly can. It's not like it's not like a car that you just kind of want to upgrade. It's expensive to get these heavy satellites into space, and you use them for as long as you are able to. So I'm sure that these satellites that they're sending up are going to be up there for longer than 15 years. Now, there's also a new civilian frequency called L1C. Besides helping with signal strength, it's compatible with Galileo. Great, he can finally get wherever the heck it is he is going. They mentioned that in November 2018, the FCC authorized Galileo signals to be received in the US, which made that much more likely you'll have multiple satellites in view. In the double figures even, when technically you only need 4 to get a good, accurate location. So if you have 12 satellites, it might just be the difference of just a fraction of an inch difference. But for companies that really focus on making sure that, whatever it is that they're using is super accurate, that is very, very important. And you can imagine, technology like GPS trucking and GPS shipping and GPS, let's say you're a hiker and you get lost and you have a GPS beacon. Being able to get, pinpoints instead of within a couple of yards or meters, which could be everything, you get within a couple of inches or centimeters, which would point them right to you. They say that the addition of the L1C signal with GPS 3 will likely make matters even better. Saying that if you have more satellites, this is what Garmin is saying, you can have more direct line of sight signals available to you, and you can get a better fix. The military, meanwhile, is getting, among other things, the encrypted M code that's key to the enhanced anti-jamming and anti-spoofing capabilities, as well as spot beam capability for focus signals in combat areas. So obviously the GPS started as a military product, and it makes sense that a lot of its improvements are going to still be focused on that whole part of it. So with that being said, so the military gets some nice goodies. Let's see, a little bit down the road, the addition of a laser retroreflector array, ooh, fun stuff, will allow the positioning of satellites to be refined via ground-based laser. Blah, blah, blah. Looks like Lockheed Martin has a contract to deliver a total of 10 GPS-3 satellites at a reported average cost of $500 million apiece. Hey, tax dollars at work. But the company says that the last two of them will come in at around $200 million each. Someone really shopped around for their satellite provider. I like that, saving us money. When that's done, it'll move ahead with a batch called GPS-3F, and additional 22 satellites to continue replacing older models through the coming decades. Saying it takes a long time to replenish the GPS constellation. It takes years. There you go. Now, obviously, GPS has its own kind of glaring issues, and they're going to be working on them. This is like any other infrastructure. Just because you have a bridge built doesn't mean that the bridge doesn't need expanded, it doesn't need fixed, doesn't need patches, doesn't need support throughout its entire life. So GPS is the same way. But hey, much like that bridge example, GPS can get better and will get better. So there you go. Okay. How about we move into, instead of practical, some rumors? And this follows kind of closely with what we've been talking about when it comes to Windows. And it looks like they had a leak, quote unquote, although I will say that most leaks nowadays are just simply press releases. So we'll find out what happened. Obviously, the tantalizing rumor mill is much more fun than the straight up press release from the company. But hey, let's dive in and find out about Windows 11. Because of course that's, there's no guarantee that's what it will be called, but we do have a supposed leak from Windows 11. Which you can see right here, if you're watching the video portion. Lawrence Abrams, Bleeping Computer, Windows 11 leaked what we know so far about the new OS, and this is an alleged preview build for Windows 11 has been leaked, confirming the new name for Microsoft's next generation of Windows and providing a glimpse of the new features. When it comes to names, I mean, let's face it, they skipped Windows 9, and to jump right into 11, kind of obvious that they would. No surprise there. Ever since Microsoft announced that they were unveiling the next generation version of Windows on June 24th, so that's still about a week away, speculation about its name has been running rampant. If this leaked build is legitimate, and appears it is, we now have confirmation that the next version of Windows is Windows 11. Again, official confirmation on that in about a week. But still, Windows 11. The Windows 11 ISO image was leaked today on a Chinese-speaking forum and has quickly spread throughout the internet as users rush to install the new leaked operating system. I'm shocked that it's Chinese that would be the ones to leak it, but here we are. Windows 11 Pro, and this is from the image directly that you can see here. The edition is called Windows 11 Pro. The version is a development version leaked today, which would be the 16th, and the experience is the Windows Feature Experience Pack. Blah 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 blah. The point is, it looks pretty legitimate, and if I'm being honest, it looks a lot like Windows 10 and 10X. The main difference you can see here is the desktop has, kind of a standard Windows 10 background image. It looks pretty good. It has the recycling bin. It has Microsoft Edge. But then the taskbar across the bottom, instead of everything being smushed over to the left, with the window logo way over there on the left, it's kind of taking inspiration from Mac, where everything is kind of centered in the middle. You of course have things that are pinned to the taskbar, but by and large, it's almost Mac-esque. Obviously, the Mac has the dock, I want to say is what it's called, and it tends to get a little more overcrowded. I'm sure this one could be crowded as well, but everything's in the middle, ready to go, and it's almost like a Mac Lite, if I could say that. So at first glance, Windows 11 looks a lot like Windows 10. These changes were part of the Sun Valley update that we have been reporting on for some time. However, the considerable changes in Windows 11 that were not confirmed until today, that the first change is that the new Windows logo, which, if you're looking at that, 4 perfectly segmented squares in the window pane kind of style, and yeah, it's a simpler version of the existing Windows 10 logo, because the other one is, why don't I say parallax? It's skewed a little bit. The Windows 10 logo is skewed a little bit. This is just a very flat, basic design for the logo. Let's see, so from the images shared with Bleeping Computer, the Windows out-of-the-box experience has received an overhaul with new colors, graphics, and an installation wizard. Obviously, they want to make onboarding as simple as possible, because Windows knows better than most people that non-computer savvy people need to be able to set up their own computers. So, simplifying that a little bit, Microsoft has also introduced a new light and dark mode default wallpaper, as shown in below, and you can see that. Let's see, that's right down here. Light mode, which it looks like folded paper, but almost like a rose. I don't know how to explain it best. Anyways, that's like the light mode, and then the default dark mode wallpaper, which I think looks gorgeous. It's perfect. It's definitely a good change. They've also mentioned that the Windows users will notice that the new Windows 11 Start menu, borrowed directly from the now on hold Windows 10 X, and you can see that here. The new Windows 11 Start menu floats above the taskbar and is centered directly in the middle of the screen. So I know that Microsoft has been doing this for as long as like Windows 95 or Windows 3.1, where everything's in the bottom left. You click it, pops up in the bottom left. Everything's kind of on the left side of the screen, but making it in the middle makes a lot more sense. When personally, I'm staring at like an ultra wide monitor, and it's almost like, you have to go all the way over there. And I know just turning your head is not that difficult, but a lot of computers and a lot of monitors, I guess kind of, it's the resolution has changed so much over the decades that maybe putting it right in the middle is just makes more sense than having it pop up in the left, because back in the day, the left and the bottom left used to be really close to the center anyways. Nowadays, not so much. So yeah, here's the, you have a lot of different pinned applications. You have, kind of recommended applications. So of course they can start plugging their store and things like that. It looks very clean. It is possible to change the position of the start menu from center to the left side of the screen using the taskbar option. So if you are a traditionalist, I'm sure a lot of these changes can be reverted back, but still. The new Start menu will be the most visible change users will likely see in Windows 11, and the one that will take most time for users to get used to. As Windows users worldwide install the leaked build, the new features will likely be discovered and shared before the Windows event. It is also important to note that the build may be tampered with, and it may have malicious programs or viruses pre-installed on it. So essentially, the website is doing its due diligence to say, don't download leaked, pirated versions of a Windows operating system because it's not from an official source and it may be compromised. It may be bad. And even if all these that aren't, all these going around aren't bad, the one that you may go out and find might be a very, very bad program. So don't be so eager to rush out and download this thing. So there you have it. We will know more in about a week's time. Again, I think they said June 24th, so just a little over a week, and we should have all of the new builds. But I gotta say, everything looks really, really good. Windows 10 was always going to have a successor, even though they said they weren't going to do it. And one more little tidbit I did not see there in the article, and again, this may have been a rumor, but the rumor is that Windows 10 should be replaced by Windows 11, I want to say 2025. 2025, I think, was the rumor that Windows 10 stops getting regular updates. So obviously the two will run in parallel for a couple of years, for a year or two, but after that, 2025, Windows 10 should give way to Windows 11. The transition from one to the other is, should be super simple, so I'm not worried about that at all. It's a very, as far as full-blown updates go, Windows 7 to Windows 8 was probably a much bigger shift than, and of course Windows 8 to Windows 10 was another big shift, although it's, kind of a shift backwards than it was forwards. It looks like Windows 10 to 11 is probably going to be something more akin to a Windows XP to a Windows 7 kind of update. Not really that scary, and it should just go smoothly, or at least one would hope. Okay, there's that story number 4. Story number 5, this one's creepy, and Devinder Hardwar for Engadget, he's their hardware expert, always does great stuff. And I actually was able to go see the Moxie robot. This thing is, it's kind of cute. It's very Wall-E-esque. Yeah, the more refined robot of Wall-E. And, it has a nice big cute face, big eyes, very expressive, and it's a robot for kids. If you don't remember what it was, Moxie, M-O-X-I-E, was always sold as a robot for kids, and it would help them with speech, it would help them learn, the screen would, display shapes and stuff, it would teach kids, keep them companionship, it would have a camera in it so that you can monitor it, it would be a baby monitor, it would be essentially a young child's companion for its first 3, 4, 5 years of life. Very and obviously a lot of people found that a little disturbing, that you would start to monitor your kids at such a young age and then get them not just acclimated but reliant on technology to that point. But it's also very kind of science fiction that you grow up with friendly robots. So it's fulfilled a little bit of that fantasy, but at the same time, it was expensive. Back then, it was about $1,500, which to give to a drooling, not exactly coordinated kid, well, not a lot of parents want to throw away $1,500 for something that is probably going to get covered and sticky. Well, you now have a second option, and that's a payment plan for just $149 a month. Can't have it $150. It's got to be $149. $149 a month, you can rent a Moxie robot. Because personally, when I read that headline, I thought, what makes me more comfortable, or I should say more uncomfortable, than a robot that is designed to be around your kid? It's a robot that is designed to be around your kid that you don't own. Nope, you're just renting it. And this is where Devendra writes, I found a lot to like about Embodied's Moxie robot, a companion that can help kids play and learn. It had fluid animation and some genuinely interesting conversational technology, but it cost $1,500 along with a $40 to $60 monthly subscription service after the first year, which is crazy to me. I mean, $40 to $60 a month. Over the course of a year, you're looking at, what is that, like $480 to $720 a year. I'm sure that, there are two different tiers. For most parents, that just doesn't compute. But what about a less excessive $149 monthly rental fee? And that's certainly more accessible up front. It also covers the company's content subscription fee. Still, you're paying about $100 a month to just rent this robot. For most consumers, renting a Moxie is probably a better bet. You don't want to pay a ton of money for hardware that that could be obsolete if the company goes kaput. And that's where Devendra mentions Jibo. Jibo was another little robotics company that kind of pulled the plug on their robot as well. And that one I had also seen. It was kind of cool, and it had like a little tracking, I guess, kind of screen that would track you around and play music and talk to you. But yeah, it's. I remember when they did that, they shut down their servers, and essentially their little Jibo robots were completely bricked, because obviously the service that was supporting them went out behind the scenes. So even though you paid like $1,200 for this thing, it was completely useless because the company went out of business. And you could complain, but hey, that's just the way it went. You could hope for third party, you could hope for open source people to come by and make it something useful, but by and large, hey, imagine if Google went out of business tomorrow. All of the G Suite products, all your Gmail, all that stuff, the plug would be pulled and all of it would be gone. That's just the nature of cloud-based technology. Now, pricing will always be the biggest barrier for every robot, but if they actually want to get these things into homes, robotics companies will definitely have to think harder about ways to make their gear more affordable. And I'll admit, robots are not the most inexpensive thing to produce, and I'm sure one that is not a choking hazard, is impact proof, can stand up to kids, kind of playing with it, carrying it around, dropping it, and still be able to do its job and be simple to use. Like, there's a lot to ask for there. I would love to know the value proposition of the learning experience of these robots when it comes to young kids, and if it actually makes a difference. But if it does, maybe renting it for like a year. I mean, $149, let's face it, parents have paid a lot more for a lot less when it comes to getting their kids ahead in life. If it actually makes a difference, maybe parents would be able to shell out, what is that, like $1,800 to rent a robot for a year? Maybe. But yeah, there you go. Rent a robot, again, that you do not own. Creepy. Still creepy, no matter how many ways you put it. Okay, our next story. How about, let's see, number of articles here. How about Apple? We talk about Microsoft, we can give some airtime to Apple. Apple, if you didn't know this, and you may have, kind of picked up on it subconsciously, Apple has been making a lot of pushes into healthcare through their Apple Watch, their fitness trackers, through their phones, fall detection. They have a way that you could put relevant medical cards on your phone, press the power button like 5 or 6 times. It becomes almost like a life alert, style thing where you can call for help in 911. Apple has been doing a lot to try to appeal to that aging population that needs to live alone or needs, some kind of assistance when it comes to remembering to take your pills and, just the day-to-day trials of, kind of the healthcare industry. Well, Apple reportedly had trial plans for a primary care service on its own employees. So they were taking it a step even further, where the company wanted to link health data from its devices with clinical care, and that's what the Wall Street Journal reported. Because obviously, Apple is collecting a lot of data on its device about you. How much you walk, how much you move, did you fall? You can put in so many devices to track like blood glucose. You can track blood pressure. You can track, kind of heart rate, heartbeat. You can track oxygen levels. All of that can be stored on the phone. Why wouldn't Apple want to make a system that behind the scenes that, of course, healthcare providers would have to pay for, but to be able to share that information in real time with healthcare providers? Because they already have it, so why not share it? The Wall Street Journal reported that efforts reportedly stalled as employees questioned the integrity of data collected through the services. Tech companies, including Apple and Amazon, have spent the past few years trying to expand into healthcare. They mentioned that Amazon now offers its own telehealth and at-home healthcare program, but not all efforts have been successful, and Amazon's healthcare Project Haven, co-founded with Berkshire Hathaway and JP Morgan, failed and shut down in January. So obviously, Amazon has tried with Project Haven. There was a subscription drug program that Amazon, I believe, like Amazon Pharmacy, that they're still doing. Their aspirations are not crushed, but they're having trouble breaking into the market. And it makes a lot of sense. Even though tech and personal privacy, data privacy is a pretty big thing, when it comes to healthcare, though, much more stringent and very, very, notoriously difficult to be compliant in that field. But it's so lucrative that it only makes sense. Now, Apple's own plans for a primary care service focused on integrating data collected by other devices like Apple Watch with clinical care. A subscription-based program would offer patients personalized care. The company trialed the plan's service by taking over an employee health clinic and using it as a test site. So, yeah, Apple Healthcare. If Apple could show that the combination of monitoring devices and health services could improve health, it planned to offer the model to other organizations, according to documents viewed by the Wall Street Journal. Now, the project hasn't moved past the early stages. Apple employees have raised concerns about the data collected at the clinic and the culture of the program. They mentioned that the vice president of health at Apple and the head of the project reportedly was angry when employees questioned the clinic's data during a 2019 meeting. The incident led employees to believe that there wasn't room for critical feedback. I'm shocked, though, because that is like the first thing that we ask whenever we have a healthcare company here on the program is, how is your data policy? How is your data protection? Do you encrypt it? Do you save it? How much do you know about people? Do you have the proper, procedures in place to care for people's health data? Because that's some of the most sensitive data you can have out there. Sure, past transactions, that's one thing, and that's, and that can't really be changed. But on a going forward basis, you can't change your health. You can't change your blood type. You can't change your, you can't change your conditions and your medical history. All of that is very permanent and something that you don't want lost. So obviously to get angry over people questioning, are you taking the proper steps to make sure that our data is secure, seems very strange. An Apple spokesperson told the Wall Street Journal that the criticisms were not accurate and the incident was investigated. Okay. The team also worked on an app called Health Habit, which gives people health challenges and lets them chat with clinicians. The app has a hypertension program used in the health clinic. Apple Chief Operating Officer said that during a meeting that 91% of patients at the Apple Clinic with severe hypertension saw improvement, and that it was evidence for the app and the clinic's potential. But employees were concerned that the data gave a misleading impression of how well the clinic was working. An Apple spokesperson told them that the data announced in the meeting was from an internal pilot program. Apple has other features that let people blend iPhone and Apple Watch data with their clinical care. A tool announced last week would let people send data from their iPhone's health apps directly to their doctors. Again, if Apple is going to be collecting this stuff, which you know they are, and they're going to continue to do that, being able to share that data in a quick, efficient, and monetarily advantageous way, Apple's going to try its best to sell data. The only good thing that you can hope from all this is that Apple sells your data, obviously with your consent, which Apple's been very good at doing. Selling your data with your consent to people that you would want to have your data. It's just Apple would work as that intermediary and set up the services that you would then want to use. That's a little bit different than a lot of other data systems that you have to interact with on a day-to-day basis. Still, very, very interesting that Apple tried to, be people's doctors, or at least, that was exactly it. They were trying to treat people with hypertension and of the sort. Okay, now with that being said, let's go ahead and how about, we can talk about Amazon just for a little bit. How about this? Amazon burns through workers. And for those who don't know, Amazon currently employs about 1 million people. It is a massive organization. They employ about 1 million people, and it looks a little daunting to be able to hire so many departments and, find enough people. And it looks like Amazon has actually had the worry that I never thought they would. Amazon burns through workers so quickly that executives are worried that they'll run out of people to employ, according to a new report. And that's assuming that people wouldn't come back to work for Amazon. I honestly believe that people would absolutely come back and work for Amazon if Amazon was a place that they would care to work at. But I digress. They say that Amazon has been hiring hundreds of thousands of workers for roles in its warehouses, which it calls fulfillment centers, but those employees have been quitting almost as fast as they can be hired. Many of the over 350,000 Amazon workers Amazon hired from July to October stayed with the company just days or weeks. Our hourly employees had a turnover rate of about 150% every year. That led some Amazon executives to worry about running out of hireable employees in the US. I can totally see where some of these employment centers, you're pulling from, larger cities even, but if you have a turnover rate of 150% and you've already hired 350,000 workers, over the course of a year, you're hiring that many again just to fill the spots that you had already filled. That is such a bad... One of the ways you can tell that a work environment is a toxic work environment, or it's just not, really not a good place to work for, is the turnover rate. And that is some of the highest I have ever heard of. Amazon went on an Amazon went on an extended hiring spree in 2020 as it attempted to keep up with the high demand during the coronavirus lockdowns. As Americans increasingly turned to Amazon for things like toiletries and groceries, the company repeatedly touted major hiring pushes. In May 2021, Amazon was even offering $1,000 signing bonuses to new employees, partially a symptom of hiring issues that employers are facing in a variety of industries and potentially of Amazon's remarkable high turnover rates. And I gotta say that, especially when it comes to like fast food and things like that, a lot of places are starting to advertise those signing bonuses, and the hope that, and I have not looked into all of these, but I'm assuming that like those $1,000 signing bonuses are like, stick with the company for 6 months, stick with the company for a year, and you get that $1,000. Those signing bonuses are an attempt to reduce turnover, because what turnover really is it's just inefficiency. It's having to train an employee, onboard them, go through that whole process, and then they start working, and then they quit, and then you have to do that whole onboarding inefficient part of bringing people into the company over and over and over again. I'm sure that they would love to stop doing that, but still. One former Amazon manager who oversaw human resource efforts focused on warehouse workers compared the situation with worker churn at Amazon warehouses to the use of fossil fuels. We keep using them even though we know we're slowly cooking ourselves. Amazon representatives didn't immediately respond to a request for comment. I gotta say that, well, if Amazon relaxed the very stringent, mandates that they had for their employees, they have to reach certain benchmarks, and if they let people, kind of relax a little bit more, and they paid them a little bit more, made it a better, more convenient place to work and at better pay, I'm sure tons of people would love to continue to work for Amazon. And that's, I'm not at all worried that people who have worked for Amazon before won't work for them again, because again, they would. It's just, it might take a little bit more to bring them back than just waving a paycheck at them, because clearly they did that and they quit. And they quit very, very fast. Okay. There was that one, and another Amazon story, although this one is kind of Amazon going on the offensive here. Amazon blames social media companies for sales of fake Amazon reviews, which we all know is a thing. If you've ever been on Amazon and you see some of those products that, I was just talking about this the other day, there are a number of fake Amazon scams. There is the most obvious one where they go onto social media, they go onto Facebook, they go onto Twitter, mainly Facebook. They join these groups that some of them can be, hundreds of thousands of accounts strong, and they go, just left a 5-star review on your product, now go to mine and do that. It's almost like a tit for tat. It's a trade system where people will go and flood your product with 5-star reviews, and then in turn you have to go out and flood their products with 5-star reviews, tricking the algorithm and tricking the system. That happens all the time, and that's one of the most obvious and blatant, and I'm actually surprised that Amazon is kind of blaming other companies for its own lack of reviews. The other one is, some other ones that are a bit trickier are if let's say you sell a much simpler, cheaper product, people buy it, people love it, it's very quick, it's quick to send out, it's very cheap, and then, so your feedback is overwhelmingly positive, it's 5-star reviews, it's great product, great quality, blah, 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 and then you switch it up, markup, instead of making toys, you start making pots and pans or computers or something. You charge a lot more. You do the old bait and switch. You sell a very cheap, crappy product for a lot more money. and the 5-star reviews are still there from the old product. Stuff like that happens all the time, and yeah, Amazon again can work on that as well. There's a lot of ways to trick the Amazon review system, and it looks like Amazon is leveling some blame at social media. And Amazon wants social media to detect fraud before Amazon reports it. They mentioned that Facebook has a history of being used to sell fake reviews. As The Guardian noted today, the UK's Competition and Markets Authority secured an agreement from Facebook to better identify, investigate, and remove groups and other pages where fake and misleading reviews were being traded, and preventing them from reappearing. I guess that's a big part, because obviously making a page is not that big a deal. After that intervention, Facebook removed a further 16,000 groups that were dealing in fake and misleading reviews, and made further changes to its systems for identifying, removing, and preventing such content on its social media platforms to ensure this. Let me do something here real quick. Let's see. Facebook fake review group. Let's see. And obviously, if you do that, you'll get a lot of news stories that are doing that. You probably have to go on Facebook itself, which I don't think I have time, because I'm quickly running out of time. But still, bulk sales of fake reviews. Amazon has struggled to eliminate the various types of fraud, and we mentioned a couple of different types of those. Amazon blog post today said that the company has filed lawsuit against those who have purchased reviews and service providers who provided them, and will continue to pursue those bad actors through the courts. And by the way, in 2020 alone, it stopped more than 200 million suspected fake reviews before they were ever seen by a customer. And think about how many reviews you have actually seen go through and make it onto these pages. Amazon reviews used to be like the best thing about Amazon, and people picked up on that. People know about that, and yeah, it's being tricked. It's definitely in need of a solution, because the current system is not working. So everyone, the music means that we are done. Thank you so much for tuning into Computer America. Until next time, have a great day. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with more Computer America. Everyone, have a good one. Bye-bye.